Hello, my fair friends. I'm Ruby Ruse. This is Baby Bunny, of course, and welcome to Fairy Fortunes. Today we are on location in Tucson, Arizona, at Bushmaster's Peak in the Sonoran Desert. We bring you our first episode of American Fey. So, with this series, what I wanted to do is to tell you and bring to you creatures of folklore from around the United States, because there seems to be this understanding that folklore is something that happens far, far away. It is not a part of indigenous American culture, and that would be incorrect, because not only are there folklore creatures that are indigenous to the Americas, there are modern day and current sightings of these creatures around the United States. So today we are in Arizona, and I wanted to bring to you a very dangerous being from Native American, expressly the Navajo culture. Now, I should explain a little bit of the difference between a Fey being as opposed to something from cryptozoology. Now, how I would make that distinction is a cryptozoology being is a creature that is not necessarily from folklore. It is possibly a species that exists in nature that just has not been documented and has not been identified or discovered in the scientific community. Now, what I would distinguish from a cryptozoology creature is that a Fey being would be a being that has some type of extra superpower, a supernatural basis. So these are beings that have some kind of perhaps shape-shifting ability. These are beings that have some kind of mind control, perhaps, or has some kind of magical element to them that is different from a creature that could be just a creature that just has not been discovered by humanity yet, whereas a Fey creature is something that would exist probably outside of the human dimensions. So there is another category of creatures that we are going to be talking about today. Now, usually I would say that a Fey being, a fairy creature, would be a being that is not in any way human. This is a creature that goes completely beyond humanity. But there is a gray area within that, is if you do have a creature that began as a human, for example, a vampire or a traditional werewolf that we are very much part of our culture in the form of movies and fictional works, this kind of thing. Those are beings that do have supernatural abilities, but they began as a human being. So that is a little bit of a gray area, and that is exactly where I'm beginning the American Fey segment in Arizona. I have chosen for you today to discuss a very dangerous creature from Native American Navajo folklore, referred to in American English as the Skinwalker. Now, the Navajo language is very, very difficult to master and pronounce, so I will have the Navajo name for you in the description, and hopefully I will have a subtitle coming across here to show you what that name is, but I do not want to mispronounce it because pronunciation is very much a part of the Navajo language, and if you have the wrong inflections, the word can mean a completely different thing. So essentially, what the Native American word translates to is he who walks on all fours. Now let me explain a little bit about this creature. The Skinwalker has very similar abilities as a Navajo medicine person, and it is my understanding that when you go through training as a medicine person in the Navajo culture, you do learn essentially the same things that a skinwalker would know. What we refer to as magic in the Western world is very much a part of the Native American culture, exceptionally so with the Navajo. They perform all types of healing ceremonies and ceremonies to work with nature and these types of things that fall into the realm of traditional magic, things that would be easily recognizable as magic to a Western cultured person. Now, normally that type of magic, as I said, it is reserved for healing, it is reserved for working with nature, but the skinwalker is the juxtaposition of that type of magic and goes further into using magic to expressly cause harm. Now, in Navajo culture, there is a strong taboo about wearing the skins of animals. The only skins that are allowed to be worn, and usually only for ceremonial or significant purposes, are the skin of the deer and the skin of the sheep. Those are non-predatory animals, and they are used within the Navajo culture for many, many ways and reasons, but usually those skin items are worn for very significant reasons and mostly for ceremonial purposes. Any other type of animal, particularly a predatory animal, is a complete taboo within the Navajo culture. And it is possibly for a part of this reason that the skinwalkers choose to wear the skins of these animals. So a skinwalker is a medicine person who has taken magic on a darker and harmful purpose. So it is said that they don the skins of these predatory animals and can shapeshift into these animals. The common animals of the skinwalker is coyote, which is very common here in the Arizona area, and the wolf, sometimes also bear, and many other, and they can shapeshift into any of these creatures. They also have the ability to use mind control on people. If you are to look a skinwalker in the eye, you may fall under their spell, and the skinwalker will be able to control your actions. They are also responsible for illness, and also it is said that these skinwalkers exude such a negative energy that a herd of sheep will be instantly sicken and die from the influence of the skinwalker, and actually that is used as an indication that there is a skinwalker hiding amongst the tribe when the sheep start dying. It is said that the sheep are a very fragile animal and cannot process that intense negative energy of the skinwalker. And with this, I bring you the skinwalker from Arizona because I have a personal connection to this creature, which I will explain momentarily. But I am begging you to be very cautious about speaking about this being, because this is very much a part of the great Navajo Nation's culture. It is a part of the Arizona culture, and it was extremely taboo to talk about this being. They are extremely dangerous. I'm asking you to show respect and to be very cautious about about these creatures that I'm going to be introducing on this series, American Fey. Please do not seek out members of the Navajo Nation to discuss this being further. I will have a list of resources for you in the description box below, which you consult if you would like to learn more about these beings. But this is an incredibly taboo subject, and I'm only showcasing and sharing this being with you because it is very much a living, breathing part of modern folklore. And also I am trying to show my personal connection to this being. Now, I am here in Tucson, Arizona, but the Navajo Nation is actually much closer to Flagstaff, which is north of where we are here in Tucson, in the town of Flagstaff, Arizona. that is actually, I spent a great many years in Flagstaff, Arizona, and I happened to be living there in the summer of 1987. Now, in 1987, Flagstaff is a very, very small community. It is well known for its environmental consciousness, and as a smaller community, it is considered a very safe neighborhood and safe place to raise children and have a family, as not much crime happens there, and people are very much a part of the environment and concerned about the environment, and have strong moral concepts and values. However, in the summer of 1987, a terrible murder occurred. A young woman by the name of Sarah Saganitzo was violently murdered in Flagstaff, Arizona, near the Flagstaff Medical Center. Now, the details of her murder that I can share with you is that she was stabbed multiple times and also was mutilated. A part of her chest area was actually bitten off. There were other elements that were strange about her circumstances. There was a broken stick laid across her neck, and there was grass scattered about the crime scene, and people were under the impression that this specific type of grass grew prominently in graveyard areas. Those elements with the broken stick and the graveyard grass had elements of Skinwalker magic associated with it, and with the violent mutilation of the woman's chest area, that she had actually been bitten several times, in addition to the stab wounds. The understanding who the murderer was in that particular setting was in fact that it was a Skinwalker. And as I said, I was actually living in Flagstaff in that summer of 1987. And the air was one of terror in this entire community. I remember very vividly that my father, who had many, many friends and associates that were from the Navajo Nation, and my father, the only thing that he ever said about the murder is that he turned to me and very pointedly said it was a Skinwalker, and that was all he said, and he never spoke of it again. And what was terrifying about this particular murder in Flagstaff, Arizona, was that everyone knew what had happened. Everyone knew how horrible this situation was, and yet it was strongly on all of our minds, and yet no one spoke a word about this, because you do not speak of the Skinwalker, because to talk about them is to invite their presence within your life. So the Skinwalkers are incredibly dangerous. Now, how it is said that one becomes a Skinwalker is that, of course, you have to go through the medicine training of the Navajo people. But there is an additional element, is that you have to make the significant choice that you will turn that magic for ill purposes, that your intent will be to cause sickness, to cause harm, and not for any just reason, but simply to cause harm and to make chaos, and for that to be the only purpose behind that. So you do have to first make that conscious choice to turn that training for the work of bringing people down as opposed to raising people to their best point. The second element is that it is said that in order to become a Skinwalker, in order to get the ability to shapeshift into these very strong and powerful predatory creatures, is that you must murder a member of your own family, and usually it is said that it has to be a sibling. So, as you can appreciate, this strong taboo against going against nature and killing off a member of your own family, because it is very much a part of the Navajo culture that they work with nature, they work with the rhythms of the earth, and the Skinwalker is very much in juxtaposition to that. They are going against what is considered rhythms of nature in the Navajo culture. So with that previous murder, what I can tell you is that there was a man that was arrested for that murder, and the defense for that murder was that the defense team proposed that the murderer was a skinwalker. Now, it remains to be seen whether they were trying to spin that as the skinwalkers not being a supernatural being in and of itself, but more of a religious cult phenomenon. Sarah Saganito was of the Navajo Nation, so perhaps she had been the initiation. The idea was that they were trying to spin that it was a member of Ms. Saganito's own family that had caused her death in order to become a member of the Skinwalker cult. That remains to be seen, or if they, but definitely they were using the folklore traditions of Arizona to perpetuate that crime. And actually the man that was charged with that murder and went to trial for it was acquitted of all charges, and probably largely due to the Skinwalker defense. So as you can appreciate, this legend, this piece of living folklore here in Arizona is incredibly viable and living in this current age. So what I can tell you more about the Skinwalkers is that there's a couple of different things. Some stories say that you can kill them just like any other man, and that in fact they should be killed because they are against that rhythm of nature that I mentioned. In other tales, which I tend to give more credence to, is the fact that they are actually more difficult to kill. One of the ways to kill them that I found during my research was that you had to take a bullet and dip it and with the ash of the white ash tree, and then you were only able to kill the Skinwalker with this bullet if you were able to obtain a headshot or a neck shot. Any other area of the body on the Skinwalker would not eliminate them. And if you know anything about the use of a firearm, actually the head and neck area is actually a very difficult and sometimes lucky shot to make. As much as you can appreciate, the torso area of a body is a much larger space and has major organs here that it's much easier to get a clear shot of this area, but the head and neck area is considered a very challenging area because of its small circumference. The other way that I read that they could be killed is that they could be killed by a knife made of pure silver. Now, I don't think that this piece of the story is very credible. I think that the silver knife probably has some influence from Western folklore and has blended the Skinwalker with the Western version of the werewolf or lycanthrope from European culture. But the white ash tree actually makes a little more sense to me. Another piece of the folklore of the Skinwalker is that actually as I said, I urge you to please show deference, to please show respect to the Native American cultures and the Navajo Nation, because the United States government treated this culture extremely, extremely poorly. These people were persecuted, and it was terrible what the United States government did to these great people. So please show your respect and your deference and utilize care, and please do, as I said, I'm begging you not to bring up this character with a member of the Navajo Nation or other members of different Native American tribes, because it is very taboo and very disrespectful. this is a part of their living culture. So do please keep this in mind. As I said, I have this personal connection, and my goal with this series is to show you that folklore is not this piece of fiction. It is not something that is dead and to be looked at as a history. That folklore is very much a part of our living traditions right here, right now, in the present, and folklore is continuing on and is a living piece of our culture. So, as I was saying, the United States government treated this culture extremely poorly. I believe it was in 1864 they had what is referred to as the Walk of the Navajo, where they were removed from their ancestral lands here in Arizona. And actually, like I said, where we are in Tucson, Arizona is not on the Navajo Nation. The Navajo is actually to the north in the Flagstaff region and extends. I will have a map for you to show you a little bit more about the Navajo area and where they reside in Arizona. But in 1864, they were removed from their ancestral lines in what is referred to as the Walk of the Navajo. Now, most people are more familiar with the Walk of Tears, where multiple nations of the Native American peoples were marched through horrible conditions, and many lives were lost during this terrible march. And the Walk of the Navajo in 1864 is another element of that terrible Walk of Tears. And as you can imagine, there were horrible conditions. Many people were dying. There was so much sickness. They didn't have proper food and water, and they were being forcibly marched out of their own homelands. It was horrific. And it is believed that during this walk of the Navajo, that many people on that walk turned to the life of the Skinwalker in order to escape from those horrible and terrible conditions. So later, and I believe it was 1878, the Navajo had a purge of skinwalkers. They held their own witch trials during that time, and at least 40 members of the Navajo Nation were killed as skinwalkers. Now, I have very limited information on that, but it is available, and I will have some links for you down below to talk a little bit more about that. And the reason that I bring this up is that I just want to show that it appears that no human culture is exempt from their own version of witch hunts and witch trials and the devastation that that can bring. And that type of purge where people are persecuted and murdered due to these beliefs that they have magical abilities, that is something that is so easy to fall into. There is a more dangerous element than that. There is a dangerous element of trying to remove people permanently for their use of and gifts with magic. So I do think that we need to be reasonable and careful. But you can appreciate that when these witch trials happen, it usually comes about from great times of oppression. And it is a response to that oppression that these types of things happen. But as I said, as I was speaking, I actually was living in Flagstaff, Arizona at the time of the Saganito murder. And it was an extremely fearful time. And I can tell you that everyone that I knew there in Flagstaff, anyone that I had contact with, we believed that it was a skinwalker that had committed this terrible, terrible crime. And it is very much still a part of Arizona culture. These creatures are talked about in hushed tones. And I bring them to you with this first segment of American Fey to show you that this is very much a viable and living part of our culture. Folklore is not a fiction of history. It is an ongoing discipline of our present. So be respectful to one another, and with that, have a fairyful day.